You're listening to The Green Flag with your hosts, Lukas Wacker and Kyle Cushman.
I'm a happy guy. What a great week. Oh, other than the race itself was great. I'm in a bad physical shape right now, but there's been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that have not been pretty in my life, except for Mr. Kyle Busch going to victory lane last Sunday at Auto Club Speedway, saying, just proving all the haters wrong, really, with this move to RCR. But we will dive into that a little bit to start off the show. We've got Las Vegas this weekend for the first, since Daytona, we've got all three series back in action with the Truck Series on Friday, Xfinity on Saturday, and the Cup Series on Sunday. And Vegas has turned out to be a very nice racetrack as of late. So we'll preview that. We've got our draft, of course, and it's a pretty quiet news week all in all. So before we get into today's show, how are you doing today, Kyle? Because obviously in another sport that we both follow, it's been a hectic week.
It's been a very busy week, especially on the hockey side of things, with being on a solo day shift for 3 of the 4 days, and a couple of days there where a couple hours went by and had to check if I was still breathing. But that's why
I did text you to see if you were alive. So I guess I was on the pulse.
Yep.
No
You absolutely were. But no, that's why we love what we do. And it's been a very fun week. By the time you're listening to this, it either will be trade deadline day in hockey or just before, depending on when this ends up going up. But very busy week, but very fun, and looking forward to NASCAR in Sin City this weekend.
Yeah, to continue the West Coast swing. Who knows how long that can be considered a thing starting next year, as we said goodbye to Auto Club Speedway, which provided great racing once again. Went out with a bang, where John Hunter Nemechek won the delayed Xfinity race. So he technically wins the final ever race on that layout, which is kind of funny.
That was kind of fun, having the late night Sunday Xfinity race. That was kind of fun.
I personally like a late night Auto Club race. I think a nighttime race there is actually very cool, going into the dusk and into the night. But that worked out, really. The last dance, if you will, there. I know you don't like me saying that much because you think it's overplayed, but still had fun with it nonetheless on NASCAR on TSN. And then, Kyle Busch ends up in victory lane. And I mean, for me, that was a pretty special win. Obviously, if you've been following the show, you know I'm like the biggest Kyle Busch fan that's ever lived. And he had my name on the side of his car, the site of where I went my first NASCAR race, in the final race at that track. It all coincided into being this one big cry fest on my couch on Sunday night. So that was a lot of fun to experience that. And after everything that's happened the last year, it was quite emotional, to say the least. But very happy that he's found it's happened a lot quicker than I thought it would. But the speed there with the car last year was very evident. It came back again as the dominant car. Ross Chastain was the dominant car for the first 2 stages, but by the end of that second stage, Kyle was right there in contention.
He also had the pit road penalty that I think affected the laps led number. If he didn't have that, I think he would have led a lot more.
Yeah. And, second week in a row, he had a speeding penalty, but at least this time he was able to recover and get the win. So making it stressful, it's almost becoming that more so to him than Denny Hamlin, which is frustrating, but nonetheless, a very fun weekend. Kyle, what did you make of just Auto Club Speedway's final weekend in general, and how it all played out? Because, you said it. He was a man on a mission, and he definitely proved that on Sunday.
Well, I said he looks like a man on a mission, and today I wrote he is a man on a mission, because that was a stellar performance from the number 18. Overall on Auto Club Speedway, it's turned into an absolutely fantastic racetrack, especially with this generation of car, where the intermediate tracks are the best racing product in the series right now. And you have so many different lanes, and you have tire wear, and you have all this great racing, and you have enough horsepower to where you're not full throttle in the corners, but you don't have enough horsepower to where the draft really matters. And when you get side by side, it's almost some IndyCar-esque oval racing, which in my opinion is some of the best oval product in all of racing. And so when you put all that together, Auto Club Speedway, if it wasn't going away from the 2 mile track, I think would have been one of the premier best races year in, year out going into the future. Now, some decisions were already made before this car came out, and we saw the racing product on short tracks and things like that. They got a boatload of money, and that matters. And we'll see how it goes. Obviously, they've changed up some things on the short track package that hopefully will make things better. But overall, it was a fantastic way to go out from the Speedway, which started off a little bit rough, came into its own over the last handful of years, and went out with a bang with a couple of great races, not just on the Cup side, but on the Xfinity side as well.
Yeah, the weather was pretty nuts too. I mean, for Southern California having snow on the Saturday, I'll give NASCAR credit on the Saturday for trying to get the track dry, all for naught, obviously. But you know, it's easy to just give up in a situation like that, looking at the weather report, but they got the cars out on track at least. I'm sure the drivers and the teams were just kind of annoyed by the pure idea of having to show up, because you knew it was going to be very, very unlikely that they were going to get a green flag lap in, but ended up all working out, got all the laps completed for the race weekend, and they at least sent it out in style. And it was a great race. And you know, it begs the question on how long, if it weren't getting demolished, how long would it realistically need to stay on or before it needs to get repaved? It was the old Atlanta question, because, you know, the weepers and stuff weren't as bad as what they initially thought. It seemed like the rumblings for the Friday and Saturday, looking at the weather report, people were like, I don't know, these weepers, it could provide a bit of a problem, but it seems like the drivers didn't have any issues at all. There's no spins related to a weeper or anything like that. So that was very encouraging. But
no cautions or anything like that. Like, yeah, it was good.
Exactly. And I mean, realistically, I think they have maybe 5 more years on that track at the very most, I think, if you're going to wanting to repave it if it were to have stayed, but they at least avoided that question. I wonder if how much of an impact that played on their decision. Like, it's coming to the end of its life spell with this current surface. I mean, it hadn't been repaved since it came on the calendar in 1997. Like that's pretty impressive. That's pretty durable. That's up there with Atlanta lengths on how long it was before it got repaved too. So just a natural course of a racetrack, either it gets repaved or in this case gets sold, and then it's going to get demolished. And we'll see what the short track looks like if that comes into play, but optimistic that they can go back to that spot in the near future in a couple of years' time when it's all ready to go. I'm sure it'll be a state-of-the-art facility, and how it all looks with technology advancing. We haven't really had a new racetrack built for quite some time, so I'm very curious to see what that would look like, because we've had renovations, like Daytona's had a massive facelift. We haven't had a brand new racetrack from the ground up built in quite some time, it feels like. So curious to see how that all goes. But for Kyle Busch, he is locked into the playoffs in race 2 with RCR. Theoretically, I am going to say that he'll win more than one race, obviously, so that he won't have to worry about that. Maybe that comes this weekend at his home track. Who knows? But I mean, I'm ecstatic about the situation, obviously, but you know, when we talked about it last year, we were weighing between the options of 2311 Racing, because that seemed like the other alternative that was mainly the front runner. Saying that, though, he is running a colleague Xfinity car, so he clearly liked their stuff enough to say that I still want to drive for you in some capacity, just not at the Cup Series level. And and then he had RCR as the other option, and we had a very good conversation about why we thought one was better than the other. You chose 2311. I was more on the side of RCR. I thought, you needed a fresh start, a clean slate breaking from the Toyota camp, but you can't argue that 2311 Racing is a very promising option, given that this is their 3rd full-time year in the Cup Series.
Yeah, not to obviously rehash the debate or whatever, but essentially your opinion was RCR is better right now, and that's more important for Kyle Busch, whereas my perspective was I see more long-term upside in 2311 being like a powerhouse into the future. Yeah. And I thought that would maybe be a more intriguing upside going for a title contender in the future. And that was like the two sides of the argument. Yeah. And right now it's looking pretty damn good in the short term.
Yeah. And I thought RCR would have been better, because also I think the Chevrolet is on how he talked about it in his press conference afterwards, how they make grip suits him more. Because I've listened to his radio for years and years and years, and just talking about his complaints about the common things that keep on coming up is, it's too tight. It doesn't turn in the front end. That usually is his complaints at JGR.
That's everyone's complaint, to be 100%.
Fair. But when I look at what the Chevrolets have been able to do, he usually pointed out, like specifically Larson, I think in 2021, when he won so much and it was so dominant, that he was able to just turn in the center of the corner and get it pointed. And I think that's how Kyle likes to drive. And I'm no, engineer or anything like that, but just from my observations of his tone and what he's actually said, this is verbatim, obviously, but I think that he's found a place that suits how they set up a car and how he likes to drive it. And I think we've seen that evidence through Auto Club to just jump right in there and feel very comfortable with no practice, no qualifying, no nothing. You go on that racetrack and you've got a pretty stout car. That's really impressive to unload out of the gate like that and already have a feel what the crew chief already has of the driver, what he wants. And that's impressive. I think any situation where you can just unload like that with a new car, a new team, a new circumstance, and go out there and win in your second race and be competitive in all the races that they've run so far is very impressive. So I don't know. Are you shocked? I mean, did you think that this would happen as soon as it did? We were all optimistic about his chances going into this past weekend, but I mean, I have to say I wasn't 100% locked in that he was going to win. I was hopeful, but he ended up doing it.
I wouldn't say shocked is the right word. I'm certainly surprised that they've been this consistently fast at multiple different track types and running at the front this quickly. The one thing I will say on this front is not to take away from how impressive it was, but this number 8 team did have the fastest car at Auto Club last year as well. And so knowing that, if obviously Rando Burnett said that it was a completely different setup, all this stuff, which is to be expected if you bring the same setup from last year and apply it to this race, well, it's probably not going to go too well for you because of how much people have learned. But if you already had the best setup last year and everybody's learned a bunch in the year, it can either be, it can go one of two ways, where you bring a similar setup and everybody's just learned so much that you just fall behind, or you have that already fantastic starting point and you continue to build on it. And obviously it was the latter we saw this weekend. I'm more interested to see Kyle Busch at tracks where the number 8 team and Tyler Reddick maybe didn't have this kind of dominance. And to a lesser extent, this weekend might show us a little bit, but Reddick did finish in the top 10 at both races at Las Vegas last year.
Won the pole last year.
Exactly. So I don't think that quite applies this weekend. I expect Kyle Busch to be up at the front and a contender as well, based off of what we saw from this team last year. But as we get deeper into the schedule and we start getting to some of these more places where either the 8 team wasn't as much in the mix or they had some struggles and stuff, that's where I'm more interested to see.
Yeah.
Because just looking at the speed that this specific team had last year and applying it to the schedule this year, well, in Fontana, you're talking about the fastest car last year and putting in arguably the fastest driver at Fontana in that car. I don't think you can be very surprised that that combination ended up winning.
No, I don't think so either. And I mean, it's been a very entertaining week for a guy that never gave up on him, for his perspective, because everybody who gave up on him, I think the media
gave up is a strong term. I think people doubted to a certain extent, but didn't see him being the dominant level driver again, because it had been so long since he had one of these truly like, I'm going to go out and have the fastest car and win a race because I'm the best. It had been a long time since he'd done that.
100%. Yeah, it's been a heck of I think it was 54 races, I think was the number, until his last asphalt win with Pocono in 2021. I mean, that's the longest stretch I think he's probably ever had in his career for, asphalt wins. I mean, it's crazy to think it's been that long, but a lot of the talk this week has just suddenly turned from, will this partnership work with RCR? I don't know. I got my doubts. Maybe he'll win a couple races. He's got to at least match Reddick's mark because he won 3 races in the car last year, to now Kyle Busch being like, is he a top 5 driver of all time? It's just crazy how quick the pendulum swung to the opposite end of the spectrum. That's also the recency bias of it, but yeah. Yeah, but, I think if you watch this guy drive for his entire career, you can never doubt. I'm not saying, I don't think he's a top 5 driver of all time right now either, but but if he continues on this trajectory and wins 5+ races this season, gets a championship with RCR, he's got to be in that consideration even more so when you look at the bulk of his 3 different series. It's a entirely different debate if you want to bring those in. But as a Cup Series level driver, he's a top 10 driver, I think, all time, considering the era that he's raced in, the amount of races he's won, and the age that he's at.
I would
37.
say if you don't have that opinion, I'd say having him in the top 10 is the common opinion. Having him outside the top 10 would be the quote unquote hot take.
Yeah. And then the top 5, I think, is a bit of a stretch at the moment, considering lack of championships.
You would have to project. Yeah.
But if you give him 1, possibly 2, it's so hard to win in this format right now, to go out there and a win essentially, and you win the championship final race format.
4 appearances for that kind of stat.
Yeah. He won 5 straight, and then he hasn't been there since. So he's got to get back on that trajectory a little bit better this year. But it's been an interesting to just as a viewer I wonder what people who have doubted him are thinking this week. It's just a crazy mix of emotions on what people have said about him leading up over the off season. And I remained confident throughout. Optimistic as much as I could. And I was thankful to be proven right. So a fun week for sure.
Yeah. In my opinion, that's just kind of in my opinion, at least, the unfortunate side of analysis and media, where people are so heavily based on what happened last week. What have you done for you? What have you done for me recently? Where analysis in a lot of places is extremes on one of the ends. And it's either Kyle Busch is the greatest ever and he's going to win 5+ races and he's a legitimate championship threat. And over the next X amount of years, he can get these many races and he can win a couple championships because of one race this weekend. And then before that, it was, let's see, he might not do so well. He might be on the fringes. It might take a while. That's one of the things I don't like about a lot of analysis, is how far the pendulum swings, like you mentioned. I find a lot of people have issues finding that middle ground, which is usually where the proper analysis comes from.
Which is what you get on this show.
I'd like to think we do.
I think we're pretty accurate. So we're honest. We have honest conversations. I'll admit when we're wrong, and you admit when you're wrong.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that's the great part about it. There's no backtracking. I feel like our statements, we believe it, and the next week we could look like complete idiots, and that's completely fair.
Absolutely. Hey, we don't look like complete idiots this weekend with picking Kyle Busch to be a contender. I'll say that much.
No, we did not.
But in terms of Kyle Busch, the middle ground of this analysis, in my opinion, is fantastic driver, obviously. Car that has a lot of speed, but last year showed some inconsistency. Can Kyle Busch fix that inconsistency, or is that something that we'll see creep up again?
Reliability too.
This season. Yeah, that I kind of include that with the inconsistency part. So we'll see how that develops over the year. Kyle Busch could absolutely go out and win 5+ races, because Tyler Reddick was in position to win 5+ races last year.
Easily, yeah.
With a more experienced driver who maybe knows how to get a little bit more out of the end of the races, or conserve to get more out of the end of these races. Maybe he goes out and does that. But I think it's also something where we need to pump the brakes a little bit, because we are still talking about a team that hasn't had one of these dominant seasons in a long time. And so it's looking like they're on that trajectory, but to a certain extent, it's one of those, I need to see it before I believe it things. We'll see how things go. But at least in the opening couple weekends of the season, there's no team that's been as consistent race in, race out as the number 8 team at RCR.
Yeah. And I'm cautiously trying to keep my head on my shoulders here a bit, because I don't want to get too ahead of myself either, because it's obviously been a rough couple of years here since COVID, I would say. Even 2020 sucked. I mean, he barely won a race that year. But to break Richard Petty's record as well, that's a really incredible achievement, to think of the longevity. And he still has, probably at least 5 more good years ahead of him, I would assume, given his age. But we'll see how long he wants to keep racing for. But definitely, if you're a Kyle Busch fan, if you're a pessimist on him or his ability, I think this weekend he opened a lot of people's eyes, no matter what, whether if you're a fan, just how good he was. And he, legitimized your beliefs on him. And then if you were a naysayer, I mean, he got a lot of cheers, which was great to see as well. I'm sure he enjoyed that as much as he lives up to being the villain and the black hat and everything.
To be fair, he did get quite a bit of cheers when the pit road speeding penalty was announced. So
that's true.
The crowd was a little bit. They
like to crank up that audio on the broadcast a little bit when that stuff happens. But yeah, it is what it is. You're never going to change. You're never going to get it to one end of the spectrum or the other. It was just nice to finally see that after about like 15 years, just a little bit of cheers, but nonetheless, a optimistic weekend for the 8 team, and we'll see if they can continue it here into Las Vegas. So as Kyle mentioned previously, NASCAR has made a change to a short track package. This week they've confirmed it. They tested it over the off season. That will be implemented in a 50 practice session. Oh my goodness, it's been a long week at Phoenix, and then we'll see where it goes from there. The drivers gave good feedback. It seems like it's an improvement on what we had. Is it the final product? Absolutely not. But if it's better than what we had last year, that is all we can ask for. So looking forward to Phoenix the following week here to see how really that short track new package affects the racing. Because what we saw at Phoenix in the championship race was pretty stale. Not a lot of movement, and Logano dominated. So, in the spring race, I think everybody was figuring it out. We had a lot of new players, but by the fall time, we saw a lot of the top teams really figure out the track and get their setups. But we'll see if any team that went to that test, because not everybody was at that January test, has a bit of an advantage over some of these other teams that didn't go. RCR was not at that test, but for example, JTT Jordy was. So that's an interesting debate there on the 2 teams that have opened up the season with wins, which is crazy to think about, that JTG Jordy and RCR are the 2 winning teams so far in the first 2 races of the season. It's early, but still a fun thing to point out.
And even going back to the Clash, it was a guy that didn't even win last year. Very silly start.
And Almirola won a duel. So, I mean, you got Logano, of course, winning the other one, but
we can ignore the defending champion winning technically the first one, but hey.
Yeah. And then one final thing I just wanted to mention, Todd Gillen has secured a ride for Talladega and the number 36 for front row to finish out his 36 race calendar. He's going to be running for Rick Ware, and the other races that he got booted out for essentially. Yeah, I think it's 5.
And then the one in the 36, and then,
Yeah. And then Zane Smith obviously took those other 6 races from him, and the number 38. So Todd Gillen will be eligible to make the playoffs based off of if he's in there's no top 30 point rule anymore. I was going to say there's
no top 30 anymore. So
if he wins a race at a super speedway, was very good at Daytona, showed some pretty good improvement there, I'd say, this year.
Yep.
Watch
Definitely.
out. Front row's always been
he's a guy that even back to like his Truck Series days and stuff, had some decent runs at Daytona and whatnot, had some crashing issues that resulted in him maybe not getting those victories and things like that.
Yep.
But I think he's somebody that definitely has some raw ability on the super speedways. And if the opportunity presents itself, there's 4 more opportunities on super speedway tracks, including Atlanta in that mix, because it's not a super speedway by definition, but
have an extra teammate in that Talladega race as well, and that was Zane Smith. Teammate, I don't know how.
I don't think they'll be working together too much.
But there will be 3 front row cars at Talladega, and they're all pretty decent super speedway racers. So that's a potential landing spot there for them to have a very solid day if they can avoid the carnage that is Talladega. But not obviously, it's early in the season, a very quiet news week, so. Unless you have anything else, Kyle. I mean, obviously, we've got some other sports kicking off their season with F1 and IndyCar, but this is a NASCAR episode. So if you don't have anything else, I mean, we might as well just kind of just jump straight into the draft. I mean,
well, I think we need to recap last week first, unfortunately for you.
I picked the winner. Let's just get that straight. And then everything else we can dismiss.
Fair enough. I did pick up the win, though. Sorry. Quite decisively. Sorry. My first overall pick basically didn't run the race because Kyle Larson had an issue very early on. That's true. Hey, at least he ran some laps. Larson ran laps.
Larson ran more laps, I think, than Reddick.
Oh, he did. He had 8 points to Reddick's 3.
Fantastic.
I had a pretty solid draft. 171 points isn't great on the surface, but I had 4 out of 5 of my draft picks finish inside the top 10. 2 of those finished inside the top 5, and the only one that didn't was again, my first overall pick, who was multiple laps down before
Couldn't have
he
seen
was
that
basically
coming.
on the track, which, hey, stuff happens.
It's a shame we didn't get to see him compete because I was curious on how well that car was going to run.
Definitely. But like you mentioned, you did pick up the race winner there in Kyle Busch with your third overall pick. You didn't even pick him second. Come on.
Because I wanted to leave it with a big bang there last week. And we all know.
Okay.
Maybe the third overall pick is my lucky
Maybe
pick.
it is.
I don't know.
Maybe it is.
Maybe I won't even get a chance to do that this week.
I don't know. But yeah, the lineup for myself worked out really well. Chase Elliott finishing second there.
Kevin great
Harvick,
pick there.
With a top 5 run. Denny Hamlin just outside the top 5 there. And then Joey Logano having some early speed. And then
I don't know what the hell happened on that final run. I mean, he fell way back.
That was a bit of maybe, I don't know, just an off tire set or something like that. Maybe
could have been.
For yourself,
he was top 5 speed, 100%.
Yeah. For you, a lot of guys that had some issues. Tyler Reddick getting caught up in that
speed
wreck.
Though, but
Brian
issues.
Blaney getting caught up in that wreck. William Byron with some issues that kind of went underrated, and then Martin Truex Jr. having the lost tire and then
comeback of the day
to finish 11th, which was pretty underrated. I don't know where he ended up finishing on like overall speed ranks and stuff, but in terms of guys we missed on, both Trackhouse cars finishing 3rd and 4th, we whiffed on, which I think I
mentioned Chastain with the 10th. I was so close to picking him, but I was just a little hesitant.
Some reservations over Trackhouse going into this weekend, just because was last year a bit more of a mirage. Would they fall back? I think those concerns have dissipated for sure. Alex Bowman with an 8th place run. Brad Keselowski quietly with a 7th place run there. Not necessarily the stage points to go with it, but a solid run nonetheless.
For a spin, that's a pretty good recovery.
And then rounding out the rest of the guys that we did not select that were in the top 5 of the field selections, Austin Dillon with a 9th place run for RCR there. Obviously not the win that his teammate got, but some overall speed.
They were slow at the beginning. They were
RCR.
off on the first couple stages.
Yeah. So the field 200 points in terms of the top 5 finishers that we didn't select. So we've still yet to beat the overall field. But overall, I got to feel pretty good about getting the race winner in our picks, and then for myself having 4 of the top 5, top 10 finishers.
Yeah, no, you had a great week. I don't feel too bad about what happened.
A lot of speed and a lot of bad luck.
A lot of speed, bad luck. The restart took out Blaney, who was going to recover most likely, had a very fast car in that first stage, finishing second to Chastain. Truex had top 5 speed before he had the, I think, speeding penalty or the uncontrolled equipment thing. And then he got sent to the back, and then he had the loose wheel on top of that. So, I mean, he had a very eventful day, and to still be 2 laps down and then recovered to almost get a top 10. I think that's going to be underrated. And, that 19 car is someone we said will be a bounce back candidate. I think it's very clear that he's on that trajectory. Just a bit of bad luck like he had last year, but was able to recover even more so this time around to get still 11th. So underrated day there for Truex. And then Byron was fast. And then I don't know what the heck happened. I mean, that long run at the end of stage 2, I felt like just killed him. I mean, he was in the top 5, top 3. And then he just went backwards. I don't know what was going on there. They never really talked about it on the broadcast, unfortunately. So, yeah, not great in either this or our app fantasy league right now for myself, but it's early. It's 2 weeks in. We can figure it out. But Kyle, once again, you get the honor of picking first or the 2-3 wraparound for Las Vegas. Which one shall you be picking?
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Lucas. I will be taking the first overall pick today.
Oh, okay. I think I know who you're taking then, because I kind of wanted the 2-3 wrap.
Ooh, okay. Everybody getting what they want today.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I thought you were going to take 2-3, but I think I know who you're picking first overall here. I'd be shocked if I don't get this right.
I want 2 guys, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get 2 specific guys.
But you want the main one.
There's one that I think has a slightly better chance of getting to me. So we'll see how it goes. But now I'm second guessing it because now I don't know if your opinions have changed at all.
You're locked in. You're locked in.
It's a little interesting. I'm locked in. Don't you worry. The first overall pick I will take Kyle Busch.
No, you're not.
Kyle Busch first overall. He has an active 4-race top 5 streak at Las Vegas. Hasn't led a ton of laps over that streak, but it's the home race. They had a lot of speed last week, obviously winning the race. And last year, the number 8 team finished top 10 in both races at Las Vegas with Tyler Reddick. They've just got so much positive momentum going right now. I just can't. I can't let you get Kyle Busch in the 2-3 wrap. So I'm going to take the number 8 car with the first overall pick. And on top of it, he's doing the Truck Xfinity Cup thing. It's just too much.
Oh, now he likes the cup. Now he likes the triple.
I don't like it when he does it, but
now he loves it. You can't
if it works out for me in fantasy, I can't say I don't mind it.
Congratulations, sir. You have now had Kyle Busch for the first time in our draft.
That's right. Oh my God. Yeah, I couldn't let you get him in the 2-3 wrap. There's just too much upside.
I didn't think you were going with him first overall, I have to say. I thought you would. I thought you just weren't 100% because the 8 car wasn't the fastest car here last year. Mm-hmm. But
they
you know
had
who was the fastest car here last year?
Yeah.
Ross Chastain.
Yeah.
I'll be taking the 1 car. I can't deny that he was very, very quick. They have had issues finishing off, getting very good stage points in the first 2 stages. They haven't been able to get that final adjustment right all of last year. They never won on a 1.5 mile track. And same thing happened last week. They had a very, very fast car for the first 2 stages, came down pit road even with Kyle Busch, and they ended up falling back to third, numerous seconds behind because they couldn't quite keep up with the 8 car, which I think was ultimately probably a bit faster than him overall, but they were still very much in contention there. And making a final adjustment that maybe could have skewed it so that they had a better chance of staying close with him on that final run. But this is a track that he did exceptionally well at. If you remember back to when he was with Chip Ganassi, this is the racetrack that he won at in the Xfinity Series. So it's been a long-running history of him being very, very good here. Finished in the top 5 in both races last year. It was very, very close.
Both races.
Barely beaten Kyle Busch in the first one after that late caution, but he still got third there when Bowman won that race. And then in the fall was very, very close to beating Logano in that final run, but the 22 car, which is a bit faster on newer tires there, that he couldn't keep the 22 at bay, but still finished second there at Vegas. So he's just very, very good here. Trackhouse showed up last weekend. I expect them to show up again here this weekend, namely Chastain. And I couldn't let you have him. I thought that's who you were picking first overall. I wouldn't have been surprised if you did.
I knew you would take Kyle Busch in the 2-3. I thought there was like a 5% chance that you might go some more
because of my history with
Chastain to maybe let him get to 4. But I think it's pretty clearly he's the quote unquote favorite in terms of finishing third in the spring race last year, second in the fall race. Yeah. If that trend continues, there's only one position to go higher. So
good pick. We led 151 laps and combined in the last 2 races there, which is
led the most laps in both races last year. So
that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Rumor has it.
All right. Now you have a lot of guys, in my opinion, that could go anywhere because there is some Las Vegas is the name of the top dogs if they have some luck. There's a lot of times where the big dogs that you think will have speed have some bad luck and they get involved in a wreck, blow a tire, have an issue. That is something that Las Vegas has become traditionally known as. I feel like in the last couple of years, especially since it came into the playoffs as like that opening race, and then it's now shifted on to its later date. But there are just some guys here that you cannot deny the speed that will be around this facility. And the guy that I'm going to be picking with the 3rd pick in the draft, my second, will be none other than the defending champ, Joey Logano. He's the only multi-time winner here in the last 6 races. He's always up at the front. I feel like even more so in the spring race sometimes. And he's undeniably consistent here. So I cannot go against what I've seen with their speed overall. Their 1.5 mile stuff last year was okay. And I think that's why everybody was so shocked when he won at Vegas in the fall. And they were better on the flatter, shorter track package. And that's why I thought he was going to be really good at Phoenix because he won at Gateway earlier in the year. And just seemed like that was a very similar kind of track style. And I think that they will have a little bit more speed here this time on the mile and a half after having a bit more notes to go off of. And winning the last race here is also pretty good. I know the temperatures and all that stuff will be completely different, but I still think Logano has been very, very good here as of late, that I can't let him go by the wayside to there in the 4-5. So Logano will be my second pick.
Yeah, over the last 6 races here, he has the best average point total. So just beating out Kyle Busch over that stretch. So as the defending race winner, tough to go wrong with that. Lots of options.
There's a lot of good names here that I'm jealous
lots
that you get
of good
to pick.
names on the board. My next pick, I think I got to go with this guy just for the consistency of it, and that's Martin Truex Jr. Somebody that last week had some issues and still battled back to finish just outside the top 10.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what kind of their speed totals were. I haven't looked that up from Auto Club, but I have to imagine that they're a team that might be sneaky high on the median lap rank. Speaking of medium lap rank, last year's spring race at Las Vegas, it was actually the number 19 team that had the highest median lap rank, despite only leading the 1 lap and finishing on the lower half of the top 10. They had a lot of speed last year at Las Vegas. Truex has been fantastic at this racetrack in terms of consistency. His active 5-race top 10 streak is tied with Kyle Busch for the longest active streak at this racetrack. Kyle Busch has been on the higher side of that, as I mentioned, with the active 4-race top 5 streak. Truex has been kind of more a little bit inside the top 5, a little bit outside the top 5 over that stretch. Hasn't led many laps over that stretch. In fact, only 8 laps led in that 5-race streak. But the consistency of that number 19 team to get solid runs at Las Vegas, some of the early momentum this season with the Clash win, trying to get back to victory lane for a points-paying race, and some of the speed we saw last year at this track for the number 19 team, in addition to the bounce back that they had last week. I think all of that will result in a pretty solid run for Martin Truex Jr. this weekend. I don't know if they'll have that race winning ability, but I really like them to have a really solid top 10 run. So that's more of a surefire kind of solid bet to get me something like 30 to 35 points there with the number 4.
Good selection.
Number 5 is where we're swinging a little bit more. We're going for somebody that is probably going to either be not in the top 10 or somebody that's going to be well inside the top 5, and that's Kyle Larson with the number 5 pick. And quite frankly, I don't know how many times he's gotten this far in the draft. And I don't know if he would have gotten this far in the draft had he not had engine troubles last week.
Nothing to go off of.
We don't really know what to go off of because we don't know how much speed they had, how much they were kind of laying back, just running laps. But Kyle Larson at this track last year, some really solid numbers. Finished second in the spring race, led 27 laps there, lost out on that final restart to his teammate Alex Bowman, had some issues crashing out early on, in the first half of the race, in the playoff race.
Which he had nothing to do with.
Obviously. I was going to let that part slide. But previous to this, 95 laps led in the playoff race at Vegas in 2021. 103 laps led in the spring race in 2021 at Vegas. Obviously, very different car, very different style of racing. But Kyle Larson knows how to run these intermediate tracks. This number 5 team knows how to get speed at these intermediate tracks. If they just avoid some of the mechanical gremlins that they've kind of consistently had in their history. This is a team that's
the engine stuff has been really weird with them.
Had a fair amount of it for a series that doesn't really have that stuff anymore. Kyle Larson's in for a big day.
They just
they have weird issues.
Pitter around and they got it just loses all power.
So there's just way too much upside in leaving Kyle Larson to you for this next round of picks. So I'll take him with the number 5.
I really did want him. I didn't know if you were going to take him or not, but it would have been a very nice,
I couldn't
6, 7 there.
I couldn't let Kyle Larson get outside the top 5.
I couldn't let him.
I couldn't. He was calling my name.
Now I feel like
I got the Kyle and Kyle show.
Yeah. I feel like now really like you're like into some interesting names that could either boom or bust. One guy I am confident in, though, I always feel like this is a track that he excels at. The numbers, his average finish is not the greatest, but it is still over the span of his career very good. and that is going to be Ryan Blaney.
Okay.
He was very fast last week before having the issue that sent him to the back, and then gets caught up in everybody else's shenanigans there on the restart and has nowhere to go. But I always feel like he is so close to winning this race, and hasn't been able to do so as of yet. I don't know if it's just because he's running like the Pennzoil kind of paint schemes always with the neon gray and all that stuff, like just the weirdest color combo that you're ever going to see with that paint scheme. I don't know if he's running at that again this weekend, but it always seems like it is at Vegas at least. But, over his career here in 13 races, he's got an average finish of 12.4. That's not too bad. And I feel like he's had some issues there where, naming last year, he finished outside the top 25 and 28th in the playoff race. So that's going to bring down the average quite a bit. But prior to that, I feel like he's always been up there in contention, leading some laps. And the top 5 go-getter is, I feel like, what I can almost expect. Top 7 at the very minimum, I think, for Ryan Blaney this weekend. So hoping for the best out of the 12 car here with the number 6 pick.
7th pick, big one here.
Yeah. Damn. There are some interesting names.
And none that really particularly jump out either.
There's one name that you're like, oh yeah, looking at the numbers, it's a no-brainer. But I don't know if I personally have a lot of faith in this guy at this track.
Okay. That's ominous.
Damn, this is tough because I can't. I got to have at least one JGR car in there, so I will take Denny Hamlin, even though I'm not crazy about the selection. I don't know. I just don't associate Hamlin with being well here, even though the numbers as of late would say otherwise. He's finished in the top 5 in the last 4 races here. He's got a win here. He's led 341 laps. He's led the most laps out of anybody in the last 6 races here, which is shocking to me to even read on paper. But I'll take a guess that he's going to be pretty quick again this weekend. I don't really have any other rationale for it other than he's a bigger name and has been consistent as of late. I think this is a track that could be boom or bust for Hamlin. It's very similar to another guy that I feel like I've kind of left you with here that I'm assuming that you're going to be picking, but I will take a JGR car here because it's always JGR and Penske, and then you sprinkle in a Hendrick car in there. That's always at the front. So I will take Denny Hamlin because I think he might be the better option than Christopher Bell this weekend as of right now. I haven't seen enough from Bell at this track to specifically say, yeah, I'm going to go and pick him. So I'll stick with Hamlin.
Yeah. If Hamlin was available, I kind of have to take him. You can't leave Denny Hamlin to the 10th pick there. Some weird numbers definitely at Vegas, where it's not one of the tracks that come to mind for him, but he's had some solid runs there over the last couple of years. Last year, a little bit less so. But yeah, you kind of have to have a JGR car under stable if you have the option. So tough to.
I think
tough
I
to
know
say
who you're
anything
going to
about
be picking with your next 2 picks. And I think your lineup right now is pretty stout, and I don't like who I've left.
Well, I know who I'm taking for one of them. I have no clue who I'm taking for the other one. So if you could let me know the 2 drivers that I'm going to take, that'd be lovely. The first one I'm going to take is somebody that's has had some trouble finishing these races at Vegas, but has had some solid laps led numbers and some solid stage points, and that's Chase Elliott.
That's the guy I was really debating on.
Finished top 10 in the spring race last year at Vegas.
He's the same as Hamlin for me with this track.
Finished second in the playoff race at Vegas in 2021. But the intriguing thing for me is looking back more to the 3 races before, the 3 furthest back races of this last 6 race stretch, where led 70 laps and 73 laps in the 2 races in 2020, and then 22 laps in the spring race at Vegas in 2021, where got some stage points. Even going back to last year, got some stage points and stuff in 2022, the spring race, and then just didn't quite get that finish. It feels like this number 9 team has run up front for the first couple parts of these Vegas races, and then has something go wrong or gets caught up in a wreck or just can't quite finish these races.
Yeah.
Ultimately, there's too much upside there to kind of pass on, especially looking to last week where go up and run second, start running down Kyle Busch for a little bit there, and then ultimately lose some ground there. But really strong run to get up there into second for a team that a lot of people had questions on after a pretty underwhelming playoff run. So Chase Elliott, too much upside there to pass on him at the number 8 pick. The number 9 pick is where it gets very interesting for me, though. And honestly, talking about it right now, I have no clue where I'm going, because right now in my lineup, I have Kyle Busch, Chevy, Kyle Larson, Chevy, Hendrick, Chase Elliott, Chevy, Hendrick, and Martin Truex Jr., Toyota. Out of those, I don't have a Ford, which I don't love going through a draft and not having at least one of each manufacturer in case something happens. And what I would say, and I'm fine saying this because I don't care where you go for your next pick, because I care about what I do. William Byron would be my pick right here if I didn't already have 3 Chevrolets and 2 Hendrick cars. Yeah. I just can't bet that much on one team this early on in the season. Even though Byron at the spring race, specifically at Vegas, has had 2 strong runs back to back, his playoff runs at Vegas have been less so. I wrote about him as one of the drivers to watch this weekend for the score. I think that he's a guy that
you're not picking him here.
Could be a really intriguing option. But the lack of kind of finishing ability last weekend, they had some weird issues and all that kind of stuff. They had some early speed. I just like the upside in Larson and Elliott more. So I'm going elsewhere and going to somebody that did overcome an issue last weekend and kind of had a solid, underrated run. And honestly, it's a pretty big swing because it's somebody that has had some solid results here in the past, but is with a team that kind of hasn't done a whole lot recently. I don't want to say it because I still don't know if it's a good idea, but you know what? Screw it. I'm taking Brad Keselowski with my final pick.
He is!
Solid top 10 run at Auto Club. Overcame the spin there to get back inside the top 10. And this is a track that, looking past the last couple of years, has been a very, very strong track for Keselowski, where he had three wins there in the middle part of the 2010s, some top 5 runs consistently. Actually had a second place run in 2021 at the spring race here in Vegas. It's been up and down with RFK Racing, where they've shown promise at times, they've shown top 10 speed at times, and then the next week will just kind of not even be in like the top 15 conversation. We'll see how things go here for Keselowski at Vegas. I like some of the momentum that the RFK group has coming off of a really solid, underrated run at Auto Club. Yeah, I am concerned by the 24th and 17th place finishes last year for the number 6 car. But you know what? Sometimes you got to take a swing with your last pick, and the number 9 pick. I'm getting a Ford there. I'm getting a guy that's had some results in the past and diversifies my lineup a little bit. So I'll take Brad K with my final pick here.
That number 9 pick has worked out for you in the past, so
rumor has it.
Man, I initially thought where you were going with the 4 thing, it's got to be Harvick, but I have the numbers in front of me, and Keselowski's is better, and I'm like, as soon as you started to say underrated last week, I'm like, Harvick had not an underrated run. That was a very good run. Yeah, but so,
Mr. You know what? Sometimes you got to live on the edge. You can't just take the.
It's an interesting decision, and you have got
I don't know if I like it, I'll be honest.
That. I don't think I would have in that situation for sure. Now you've left me in a pickle because there's 3 guys I think that you could definitely consider for this pick. Byron, obvious. The defending race winner of this one, Mr. Alex Bowman. I feel like he's always been pretty good here at Vegas. And then the other being a guy I may have talked down a little bit just a minute ago, but it's Christopher Bell. And it's
Can I add another name in that mix just to really mess with you?
Sure, why not? Because it's definitely helped me before.
Both Trackhouse cars were in the top 5 last week. Daniel Suarez.
I already have my Trackhouse car.
Got a lot of stage points in the playoff race as well.
I've got my Trackhouse car.
Hey, I'm just saying he's another guy to potentially watch.
I'm willing to miss out on Suarez. I'm willing to miss out on him. The other 3, though, I would love like a randomizer right now so I don't have to make a decision. Even Harvick is still on the board.
What names are you debating between? Because I'm going to randomize a list and see if it comes up with the same pick you go with.
Byron, Bowman, and Bell. All the 3 Bs. Yeah.
All right. Randomize once, randomize twice, randomize 3 times. There we have the list. Who are you going with?
Okay, so I'll get rid of a name and
Okay.
then I'll see if it matches with your randomizer.
Okay. As you pause and don't know who to eliminate.
All
right, get rid of one name here. Come on now.
Okay, I'll get rid of Bowman.
Okay. Bowman was the number 3 in the randomizer.
Are you serious?
I am 100% serious.
Holy smokes, maybe this is fate. I don't know.
I think
I've got to nail this right now for it to be accurate. Bell or Byron? I'm gonna do a quick little Google search if you don't mind.
Do whatever you want, man. Stall as much as your heart desires.
Well, I have the last pick, so I feel like I can.
That's fair.
I'm just going back to the fall.
Can you imagine
Vegas
if we
race.
added a shot clock to this?
Dude, don't even joke with me about that stuff.
Shot clock, if you go over, you get like a Rick Ware car or BJ McLeod or something.
I'm going back to the fall race here to the wreck, and I just want to see where Bell was running when he got wrecked. 8th.
That's not bad.
He's ahead of Byron at that point.
Not bad.
I will take. You know what? I'm going to say the luck goes back on his side. Byron let me down last week. I'll go with Christopher Bell to round out my lineup.
Oh, swerve.
Yeah. I'll go with C Bell.
The randomizer had William Byron.
Okay. Damn. I'm okay with it. It was a 50-50 coins flip, and I lost in a way, but I'm okay with having Bell in there. I didn't see much speed from him last week, but then I saw a lot of speed from Byron, and then it just fell off a cliff. So
yeah,
I can't, not 100% sold. So I think that there's a track coming up for Byron that I think is better suited for him than this one, perhaps. I think there's going to be some better drivers or just better contenders in this one, but I do like an upcoming track for Byron. So Bell rounds out my lineup.
Alrighty, shall we
longest
recap things?
10th pick you could ever
I'm sure
ask for.
We've taken longer before.
Go for it. You start us off.
I took Kyle Busch with the first overall pick and rounded out my lineup with Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, and Brad Keselowski.
Damn, that's a pretty stacked top 3.
I really like my top 4. That's why I kind of went a little bit off the board with my last pick.
Yeah, because you felt bad for me.
Not that I felt bad. It's that I wanted to diversify the lineup and grab somebody.
We have not heard that in a long time from you. Diversify the lineup. That's a classic Kyle Cushman line. Because we always didn't want to pick all 4 JGR cars when they were dominant there or anything.
Yep.
Diversify the lineup. Oh, in the next gen era. That might be the first time in the next gen era we've said diversify the lineup.
It might be. So,
because that was before we did the draft. We had the same picks and stuff. But anyways, for myself, I've got Ross Chastain with my first pick, Joey Logano with the second pick, Ryan Blaney with my third pick, Denny Hamlin with my fourth pick, and rounding out my lineup with the 10th and final pick of the overall draft, Christopher Bell in a full-on randomizer basically situation. So 2 Penske, 2 JGR, and 1 Trackhouse for me this weekend. It's diversified. It's got all 3 manufacturers. I've checked off Kyle Cushman's boxes of that I need to check off. What I will say
is that I am very intrigued by your lack of a Hendrick car in case they do have the dominant day that they could have.
Me too.
Oh man,
that would be my luck. The one time I don't have a Hendrick car and there's 2 on the board that I could easily pick.
Including the defending race winner of the spring race.
It's Bowman though. I can't.
I know.
That's the thing.
But
in the last time we did the draft in the fall, I picked Noah Gragson in the 48.
Yeah, you did. You did. That was a swing and a half. Oh man.
He still finished 11th with which
wasn't bad. He had a solid run.
Anybody else that you're looking out for quickly here that could be a potential, not one of the big teams, but anybody you're looking out for? I think Eric Jones is obviously a certified TGF guy that could be.
I mean, we're watching him every week. Not too much. Eric Jones has had a couple solid runs at Vegas. Reddick as somebody for a bounce back, I'm intrigued by. 3 straight top 10s at Vegas here. But like you said, I think especially after last week, the wreck is its own thing, but they didn't have that much speed before that and were outrun fairly big by Bubba Wallace. That's something where I need to see it before I believe it at this point. Just kind of early on in the season, working through new manufacturer, all that kind of stuff. I will say I am intrigued by Bubba Wallace, where he had the Vegas issues in the playoff race last year, but before that, he was legitimately fast. Doesn't have the numbers over his career here. But if they kind of have that 1.5 mile package that they had at the end of last year, that's a team that could go out and maybe upset. So that's somebody I'm watching.
Yeah, 23:11 was fast before Bubba Wallace lost his cool there on the front stretch there, but was running almost in the top 5 there at that point. So should be an interesting weekend here at Las Vegas. But we do have one final thing to do. We got to make our picks.
I almost forgot about that.
I know you do. And I'm glad I write it down every time because I would forget about it too. So we have got all 3. This is the first time this season we will have the chance to make all 3 series selections because we did not make the trucks for Daytona when we recorded. So the truck series at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, we do have Kyle Busch in the field with Chevrolet for the first time. That should be very interesting to see if he can get it done in a Chevy truck. I don't know how different it will be, but how do you want to divvy this up? Who wants to go first for which selection?
I want... you know what? We'll just make it easy. I'll take the Cup pick, so that means I get the Truck Series first pick as well.
That's pretty easy. Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, take it. Who do you want?
Back and forth. With the first pick of the winners for the Truck Series, I will take not Kyle Busch. I will take John Hunter Nemechek in the number 17 Toyota.
All right, I'm taking Kyle Busch.
And this is when you take Kyle Busch again? Because you have the first pick for Xfinity?
This is the one that I am least confident in him winning, is the Xfinity Series one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think JGR is just really good right now. I'm not 100% sold on Colleague's Xfinity Series 1.5 mile program. I know AJ Allmendinger was very, very good in it, but I think he got the most out of that car. Not to say that Kyle Busch won't, but it is not their full-time car.
I think that's what you said.
AJ
Allmendinger is clear.
But I can't. I got to take him. I'll take Kyle Busch in the Xfinity Series too. It's his home track. It's been hit or miss for a lot of his career here at this track in the Xfinity Series, but as of late, it's been much more of a hit than it has been a miss. So I still will take the number 10, which will take some getting used to for sure, for KFB to go out there and win the Xfinity Series race, putting him 1 away from his 3rd career triple sweep.
I don't know who to go for this next pick, but just to make it fun for the trend, I will take John Hunter Nemechek, so we both have the same picks for both races. And because
you're running out of options on the Sunday, I will say you can't keep this up.
And because I want you to predict a certain thing to happen, I will say that you know what? It worked out for me last time. Picking one of your guys as the race winner, I'll do it again. I will say Ross Chastain goes 3rd from Vegas in the spring race to 2nd in the playoff race to 1st this weekend. Trackhouse gets their first win on an intermediate oval.
Oh, you put me in a real pickle now.
You have to do it.
You're really putting me in this position here.
You have to do it.
I want to go get a broom because he's going to be sweeping the weekend, baby. He's going to be doing it. He's going to town in Vegas. and sweeping a weekend. Oh, I'll take it. Yeah, screw it.
The reluctance. Yeah, I guess I'll take it.
I got to. I mean, you picked him. I came that far in the picks. I think I'm not 100% certain he'll sweep. I think he'll win 2 or 3.
Ooh,
I'll say that. But with my picks, I've gone all 3. But I will say that he gets 2 out of 3 this weekend. I'll be shocked if he doesn't win at least 1.
I think it's more. I just don't know what to expect from KBM. Like I don't know.
They've got Brian Patty on that truck.
I know that's a damn good crew chief, man. I don't know. I'm excited for this weekend. It should be fun.
That he's had his running mate there and John Hunter Nemechek the last couple of years in the trucks, and they've split it. He won the first time. Nemechek won last year. But he's just so good there. Like it feels like he'll at least have a top 2 truck. It's just the body shape that's different. It's just a matter of if they've got the setup correct. I think pure talent wise in that series right now, I mean, he's obviously the best is going to be going in there for that race. Zane Smith is going to be fun to watch, I think, because their intermediate stuff has always been interesting.
Actually, on some of the entries, I'm intrigued to see what Kaz Grala does in the Toyota number 1. Tricon Garage has just got so many entries. It's crazy. They've got 5 trucks, and then one of their full-time drivers isn't old enough to run that full-time truck, so they've got 2 part-time trucks right now. It's all crazy. Yeah, okay, here's an even better question. Chase Purdy over under 10 spots away from where Kyle Busch finishes. Oh, I'm hammering the over. Okay. I'll say he gets a top 10. That getting top 10s in that truck series is tough. I know, but I say that he'll get a top 10 because that's a fun little side bet. What if he wins the race? Dude. Outdoes Kyle Busch. Never know. That's never know. That'd be nuts. I think that'd be the wildest result of the season. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it would be. Undoubtedly. Yeah. Man, interesting. So any final thoughts, Kyle, before we wrap this one up? Going into Vegas, Sin City, bring out the lights. No final thoughts on NASCAR, but on other motorsports, I'm super pumped for IndyCar this season. First, all 3 very excited for that to be back. All 3 major we've got in the auto racing world. Obviously F1, it's always fun when that's back on the schedule. Interested to see how much parity there is versus last year and some things like that. Who's your championship pick for both? For both. I can't, because we don't have time to do a season preview this year right now. So I'll just take him. You give your F1 and IndyCar pick while I think. Okay. I mean, judging off of testing, it seems like Verstappen's got to be the favorite. Not Fernando Alonso. Do you think he wins a race this year? No. I don't think so either. I think that'll be quite the race. We didn't get a crazy race really last year with the surprise result. Maybe we get that this year. That's true. Yeah, I think this will be another runaway for Red Bull this season. IndyCar, no idea what to expect. With Jimmy Johnson out of the series, it's wide open. You're such an asshole. Really, I mean, who knows what's going to happen this year? Every year people say, who I'm going to pick, actually? I'm going to say that it stays in the Penske stable. I'm going to go with Scott McLaughlin to win the championship this season. I was really thinking about that pick. I was looking at him, but everybody says Colton Herta every single year is going to be fast, makes too many mistakes. Maybe he doesn't make as many mistakes this year, but if he's in the top 2 at Nashville again, he's just going to bury it into the barriers again. But this is a big year for Colton Herta, for me at least, watching, because I need to see Andretti. Yeah, true. I just need to see a bit of a step up. Like he's been fast at certain tracks, but I just need to see consistency and a couple more race wins from him. But yeah, I will go Scott McLaughlin. I think Joseph Newgarden's going to be tough to beat, though. Real damn tough, because he's come so close. I mean, I know he's won 2 years prior, but like he's so close every year. I feel like he could have won 5 in a row like Jimmy Johnson. With how consistent he is. And for that reason, I'm going to take Newgarden. I really, really thought about McLaughlin, but mix it up a little bit. I think we could see a real fun battle between those two this season, where McLaughlin's on this big upward trend after a solid rookie season, all things considered, going from a vastly different series to IndyCar. Really found his groove last year, especially early on in the season. Newgarden, I think, would have won the championship had he not had that mechanical failure at the second Iowa race.
Yeah.
I think it was the second one. Yeah, it was the second one because he fainted afterwards, and there was some question about Santino Ferrucci going into it at Penske car after that. But I think that he's a guy that, having so many runner-up finishes in the last handful of years, he really wants to go out there and get another championship. So I'll say Newgarden gets it done. I'm really intrigued by the grid though this year. Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan with Christian Lundgaard. I'm excited to see what he does in his second season. Hunkos Hollinger Racing, Callum Eilert there. I think he could be somebody to watch in his second season.
Rinus VK is someone I'm watching too, because he showed very good spurts last year, but inconsistency-wise.
I think the biggest wild card is Rossi with McLaren.
100%.
I think he could step in there and be a legitimate title challenger right away if they find their groove. So and then obviously Andretti,
and winning a race last year at the end really would probably help his confidence coming into this year as well.
And then obviously Andretti Autosport, if they can figure out some damn consistency, they've got 3 real good drivers there that can go and get some results. Kyle Kirkwood is one of the biggest wild cards for me this weekend, or not this weekend, but this year, in terms of somebody that I could see going out and being a top 5 challenger right away. So
a lot of fun young talent in there. Don't forget about Marcus Ericsson either.
Yeah,
guy was leading the championship for a lot of the year last year, just couldn't quite get the topper echelon performances late in the season that he needed to.
The one thing I will
compete.
say is that he was up in that title challenge a lot because of the IndyCar, or not IndyCar, the Indy 500 win. The double points is gone from that.
Double points,
so that's a big factor. Not to say that
like
Ericsson wasn't great
though.
outside of it. Thing. I did like the double points, but I'm fine without it. So,
alrighty.
It'd be fun.
That's our season preview right there near the end of this episode. But if there's any news that breaks from those series, we'll probably talk about it eventually this season. But it's been a pretty quiet off season, I'd say, for both series right now. But you can catch all 3 of those motorsports we just talked about on TSN this season. Select races for IndyCar will be on linear on your main broadcast television. Some other ones on TSN Plus. Again, this is not a paid advertisement.
You just get a paycheck from them.
Let's finish off this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Turn notifications on. Ring that bell. We'll be back here again next week to preview Phoenix. And for this episode, I've been Lukas Wacker. He's been Kyle Cushman. Signing off for now. Enjoy this whole weekend of racing, everybody. It's going to be a lot of fun. Bahrain, IndyCar, and, of course, NASCAR in Las Vegas. We will talk to you next week to preview Phoenix, everybody. Enjoy the races.